My name is William, and tonight we enter the Scottish court at the moment when a queen's heart, reputation, and crown began to fall together. Mary, Queen of Scots, had been born to rule, raised among French elegance, and returned to Scotland with the grace of a widow and the burden of a monarch. Yet one marriage made in the shadow of suspicion turned sympathy into outrage and gave her enemies the weapon they had been waiting for. Mary's life had always been a performance before watchful eyes. She was beautiful, educated, fluent in courtly manners, and surrounded by the soft language of poetry, music, and ceremony. But Scotland was not a gentle stage. It was a kingdom of proud nobles, hard faith, shifting alliances, and old families who did not easily bend before a young woman with foreign polish and royal confidence. Her first great hope in Scotland was to rule with dignity. She needed loyalty from Protestant lords, caution from Catholic friends, and a marriage that could strengthen her throne without making her look controlled by any faction. A queen could not simply choose companionship. Her hand was a treaty, her household a political map, her private life a matter of national fear. Then came Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. He was tall, noble, and close enough in blood to carry dynastic weight. At first he seemed to offer something dazzling. A royal husband with a claim of his own, a match that might strengthen Mary's position, and perhaps, for a brief season, warm the lonely rooms of power. But beauty at court is not the same as steadiness. The marriage darkened quickly. Darnley wanted status beyond what Mary was willing to grant. He grew resentful, unstable, and dangerous to the careful balance around her. The court began to feel poisoned by pride. Servants listened at doors. Nobles watched who entered which chamber. The rustle of gowns against stone floors could carry more meaning than an open speech. The full story behind this might surprise you, because Mary's tragedy was not one sudden mistake. It was a chain of narrowing choices. Each crisis made the next one more likely. Each whisper weakened her authority. Each unhappy bond made her appear less like a sovereign above faction and more like a woman trapped inside it. Then came the murder of David Rizzio, Mary's secretary and trusted companion. He was pulled from her presence by men who believed or claimed to believe that his influence had grown too great. Accounts from the time are full of fear and outrage. For Mary, it was a lesson written in terror. The men around her were not merely arguing over access. They were willing to break the sanctity of her own chamber. Imagine Holyrood at night, torches trembling against plaster and carved wood, heavy doors, narrow passages, the smell of smoke, damp cloth, and fear. A queen expecting obedience, and instead finding that men could invade the intimate space of monarchy. After such a violation, trust becomes a difficult thing. It does not disappear, it changes shape. Darnley survived that scandal, but his marriage to Mary did not truly recover. He had helped set forces in motion that humiliated her. And yet he remained her husband, the father of her son, and a problem no court could ignore. Scotland waited, Europe watched. A queen's domestic misery had become a matter of state. Then Darnley died after an explosion near the house where he was staying. His body was found outside the ruined building, and suspicion rushed through the kingdom like winter wind. Who knew? Who planned? Who benefited? Historians still debate the full truth, and certainty remains elusive. But for Mary, the greater danger was not only what had happened, it was what people believed had happened. Into this storm stepped James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. He was bold, forceful, experienced, and already known as a man of ambition. He had defended Mary at moments when others turned cold. To a queen surrounded by betrayal, such strength could look like shelter. But shelter can become a prison when the world believes the walls were built too quickly. Bothwell was tried and acquitted over Darnley's death, but the acquittal did not cleanse the air. Too many people doubted it. Too many nobles distrusted him. Then came the event that sealed Mary's fate. Bothwell took Mary to Dunbar in circumstances that accounts describe in different ways. Some sources suggest force, others suggest consent, shaped by pressure, fear, and political calculation. Whatever the truth, the result was ruinous. Mary married Bothwell soon after. That decision shocked Scotland. It looked reckless. It looked indecently swift. It made her appear joined to the very man many suspected in her husband's death. Whether Mary acted from feeling, fear, strategy, exhaustion, or a desperate search for protection, the public meaning was devastating. A queen may know her own reasons, a kingdom judges the image. And here is the intriguing part most people miss. Mary's enemies did not need to prove every accusation. They only needed the marriage to look impossible to defend. In politics, appearance can become evidence when enough people want it to be true. The wedding gave her opponents a story simple enough to spread and powerful enough to destroy. The nobles rose against her. They could now present themselves not as rebels, but as guardians of the realm. They claimed the Queen had dishonored the crown, endangered her son, and placed Scotland under the shadow of Bothwell's ambition. Banners moved, men gathered. The language of loyalty became the language of resistance. Mary met them at Carberry Hill. The scene has the stillness of a tragedy. A queen facing nobles who once owed her obedience. Bothwell near her, yet increasingly unable to save her. Soldiers uncertain. Dust on the field, armor catching dull light. No grand battle was needed. Her authority had already been broken in the mind of the kingdom. For a queen, that was the true defeat, not the loss of a field, but the loss of belief. Once her nobles could look at her and say the crown itself was in danger, the old magic of majesty failed. Mary still had blood, title, and courage. What she no longer had was the shared trust that makes command possible. A throne can stand on stone, but rule lives in the minds of those who choose to obey. That was the ruin. She surrendered. Bothwell fled. Mary was taken, confined, and forced to give up the crown in favor of her infant son. That is the brutal consequence of the story. One marriage had turned a queen into a prisoner, a mother into a displaced ruler, and the Stuart future into a struggle written in suspicion. Yet it would be unfair to turn Mary into a simple figure of folly. She lived inside pressures that would have crushed many rulers. She was a Catholic queen in a divided Protestant kingdom, a woman expected to marry but punished for choosing wrongly, a sovereign whose personal life was examined more harshly than that of the men who judged her. Her tragedy was shaped by her choices, but also by the world that narrowed them. Bothwell, too, should not be romanticized. His rise was tied to force, ambition, and the harsh politics of the border world. If Mary saw protection in him, others saw domination. If she saw loyalty, others saw danger. That double image destroyed her. The man who seemed able to defend her became the proof that she could no longer be trusted to rule. By the end, Mary's marriage to Bothwell did not merely damage her reputation. It shattered the idea that she stood above scandal. It turned royal legitimacy into public doubt. It gave ambitious nobles a cause, rival powers a reason to watch, and history a tragedy that still feels painfully alive. So what destroyed Mary, Queen of Scots? Not love alone, not rumour alone, not even ambition alone. It was the fatal meeting of a vulnerable throne, a wounded woman, a forceful man, and a court ready to turn private disaster into political revolution. Her heart may have sought safety, but her crown could not survive the choice. If this story made you see Mary differently, tell me what you think below. Was she reckless, trapped, or condemned by a world that feared a queen with a life of her own? If you found this journey moving, leave a like, and join me again for more stories where duty, honour, and heartbreak meet behind palace doors. History often hides its deepest sorrow in the choices people made when every path before them led to loss.